Hi, I'm Vicksay Baby Moten Richardson, also known as the Baby. My mother named me after a dog. And so when I was 15 years old, I got a dog and named it after her. But I want to share with you my journey and my book. I was a virgin when I married him, but he caused me to be treated like a prostitute. I want to share with you my story and the other portion of my book, my journey to becoming Vickie Vicksay. It took 43 years. After the abuse and the suicidal attempts and the bigotry that I went through, and then, of course, being treated like a prostitute, I became this person that I didn't even want to live anymore. My self-esteem was low. I didn't care anything about anybody, but I walked around with a mask on my face, pretending to be somebody, when deep inside, I was this hurting person that didn't even want to live.
I want to welcome you to Dream Chasers Radio with me, your host, Yaya Diamond. What's up, people? How you doing? Okay. So we got a great show for you today. But not only that, I think this show is going to really open some eyes because we have an author. You guys know how much I love authors. Okay, I love authors. I'm in love with all of my authors here. Every single last one of them that came on. And today we have Miss Richardson on the show, and I want to welcome her to the show.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Anytime. So I know that you have like a couple of books, right? But this last book, I was like looking at the title of it, and I want to make sure I say this right. It's I was a virgin when I married him, but he caused me to be treated like a prostitute. Girl, tell me about this.
Well, I'm 66 years old, and I grew up in a...
Now stop, wait. 66, where?
I was born in
19... You're 66. You don't look like no 66. How come? You know what? We need all these good genes up in here because you look amazing.
Well, I often tell people, thank God for Maybelline.
I'll tell you what. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
However, I was born in 1956, where when you grew up in a religious home, they taught you that you should marry this way. And if you marry a virgin, God will bless you. And this, that, and the other, and whatever. So my mother was very dear to me. I'm her 14th child. We all have the same mother, same father. That's important that I tell people that. And the type of woman that she was, you wanted to please her. You wanted to make sure that she gave you praise. So it was important to me that when I walked down that aisle, that I walked down the aisle in what a white dress meant. And so I thought, oh my God, I was getting to the point in my life to where my mother was saying, I guess those old folks could just tell it by some kind of way. But she said, I think it's time for you to get married. And I said, why? She said, I've just been watching you, and there's something about you that says you need to be married. I'm like, oh Lord, what is that? I don't know what's going on. So I was this hardcore athlete. And I used to, if a young man looked at me, I gave him the wrong phone number. I gave him the wrong name. I just didn't want to be bothered. And then with my mother, you'll read it in the book. When my mother told me, she said, I've been watching you, and there's something about you that says it's time for you to get married. So what was strange about it, a very good friend of mine that you'll read about in the book as well, said the exact same thing to me one day. And I said, okay, well, maybe they're trying to tell me something I don't know about. So the next person that came along, unfortunately, I gave him a phone number. Was a young man that came to our church, and he was a minister from California. And I said, well, since I done turned down everybody else and gave him the wrong name and wrong phone number, maybe since what my mother said and my friend said to me, maybe this is true. So I went on and let him start talking to me. And before I knew it, I had fallen in love. But I happened to work for a bank for many, many years. And one of my customers, one of the things that the bank was, whenever you're closing out account, they would always ask you to ask the customer why, so that we could improve customer service. So a gentleman, I was closing out his account, and he told me, he said, whenever you fall, he said, I'm getting a divorce. And he says, whenever you fall in love, make sure you're friends first. I didn't know what he meant that time. At the time, I didn't know what he meant, but I later found out. I fell in love before I became this young man's friend.
Mm.
And as a result, every sign that showed that he was a bad person, I overlooked it because I was in love with him.
Mm.
And it hit me upside the head after I was in a horrible situation, which is the title of this book. It hit me upside the head. I fell in love before I became his friend.
Mm.
And that's what that young man was telling me when I closed out his account at the bank. He was letting me know, because when you think about it, I have a very good friend. Friends, when somebody is really your friend, they don't have any trouble telling you what's wrong with you because they love you. And that's a friend. A lot of times people get it twisted and they think, oh, if you tell me the truth, you don't like me. But I tell children everywhere that I've raised all the time, if I didn't love you, I wouldn't tell you the truth. When you fall in love with somebody, love hides a multitude of faults. Mm. And I learned that scripture the hard way because I fell in love with him. And before I knew it, everything that pointed to him being a terrible person, I found an excuse. My love overlooked it and made an excuse until I ended up getting a bad disease from him. And because he had caused me to lose, I don't know how many jobs. Oh, yes. He had caused me to lose. I had worked for the bank for many, many years, but he wrote so many bad checks that my supervisor had to let me go. Get the book. It's very detailed. And so I had no insurance. And all of a sudden I was sick one day. And I said, I don't know what to do, God. I don't have no medical insurance. And, people want to fight Obamacare, but I know what it's like not to have insurance. Okay. And I was like, if you've never always had insurance, you don't know what it's like to be without insurance.
Yeah.
So I called every doctor I could in Tucson, Arizona, asking them would they see me. And finally, about the 14th doctor told me, go to any emergency room and they'll have to see you. So I chose the emergency room that I was born at, St. Mary's Hospital in Tucson, Arizona. I chose that hospital, went into the emergency room. And when I told them what I was checked in for, all of a sudden I was treated like I was a prostitute.
Oh gosh, what?
Even by the doctor. I literally, because I had a venereal disease.
Oh, come on.
And they actually thought that I was a woman of the night.
Oh.
And that's how they were treating me. And finally, the doctor, I was in so much pain. And he came in, I sat there like 6 hours like a piece of dirt. They didn't even acknowledge me for 6 hours. Just let me sit in the corner for 6 solid hours. And then finally, they called my name. And then another 2 or 3 hours, the doctor came in. I mean, it was horrible how they were treating me. And so he said, I need to put a catheter in you. But he treated me so severely rough that it just caused me to start immediately crying. And I said, why are you treating me like this? And I said, you're treating me like I'm a prostitute. And I said, I was a virgin when I married this man, but you're treating me like a prostitute. And then it goes on from there. That's just a tidbit, but it goes into even further detail. Why I titled the book this is because whenever you go into a emergency room for a venereal disease, it had to be reported to the Pima County Health Department. So about 3 days later, I got a phone call from the Pima County Health Department saying, you have a venereal disease and you have to be treated. And I said, what? And I said, oh my God, no. And they said, you need to come down to the Pima County Health Department and let us treat you. So I walked in, I kid you not, hope it's okay to say this, but I walked in with my Bible in my hand and nothing in that emergency room or in that county, there were nothing but pimps and prostitutes there. Everybody stared at me. I mean, you would have thought that I was I don't know how to describe it. They looked at me like they knew I didn't belong there, in other words. They stared me down from head to toe. And I sat there just as scared as I could be. And they finally called me up and they told me, well, the St. Mary's House emergency room reported you for having this venereal disease. And I said, well, why am I here? And she said, well, in so many words, well, you caught it because you're a woman of the night. I said, oh, no, honey. I was a virgin when I married this man, and I've only been with one man in my entire life. And now he's causing me to be treated like a prostitute. And that is the title of my book. And that's yeah. And so the other part of it, it says, my journey to becoming Vickie Vicksay. It took 43 years. I was 43 years after I went through this with him and the situation I went through with him. I kid you not, I became suicidal. I even tried to kill myself. Oh. And at 43 years old, I thought I was a nobody. My self-esteem was nothing. And I was ready to just end my life. And it took me 43 years. At the age of 43, I realized that I'm valuable. I don't care how this man has treated me. I don't care what he's put me through. And I remarried because, you ready for this? I always wanted everybody in my wedding, from the time I was in first grade to where I got married. So my bridal party consisted of 42 people.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, you'll see the picture of it in my book.
Oh, wow.
And guess what? I wasn't even legally married. He was a bigamist.
Girl, what?
Yes. And so when I walked, getting back to the title, that's when, like I said, I have a story. So.
Oh my gosh.
It took me I was 43 years old after becoming suicidal. I literally, you'll read it in the book, I walked in front of a truck just trying to end my life. And nothing but God, I can't help but give him the glory. Some way, somehow, I ended up back on the curb. A man ran over to me. Had I known I was going to write a book, I would have got his name. And so he could be a witness, because he says to me, what happened? How'd you get back up here? It wasn't my time. And God knew the future, that I was going to write these books, that I was going to be able to share my testimony and my life with many, many women, many, many people. And that's just a portion of what I've been through in my life. I've fostered for over 40 years. And some of the children that come to my home, that's the title of the other book that you're in reference to, How I Loved Someone Else's Child While I Suffered. Some of those children think, well, you got this nice house, you got this, you got a car, this and that. And then I just tell them, and they want to hold on to their past. And they want to say, well, I'm doing drugs because of this, and I'm doing drugs because my mother did this, and I'm doing drugs. And then I said, sit down, sweetheart, for just a minute. Now I know why God called me to be a foster parent. Because I said, sit down, baby, let me tell you something. Let me give you a tidbit of my life and my story. I could have been on drugs. I could have been dead and committed suicide. I could have been a lot of things, but I chose not to. I chose to take my story and help as many women and young people and men as I possibly can. Because not only was he a bigamist, he abused me. He tried to fight me. I mean, he literally, but I was one of them tough women. When he tried to hit me one time, and that was it. Well, actually, get the book. It tells the whole story. But I was one of these women you didn't touch. And when I got through laying him out with a lamp, I said, the next time you better kill me, because you're not going to. That's really what I want. Don't let these men hit a head on you. Stand up and be strong.
That's right.
I told him, you hit the wrong woman. I mean, I'm my mama's 14th child, and 10 of them were boys. And only 4 girls. And now there's only 5 of us alive. But I grew up tough. And when he hit me and I got through laying him and he came to, I said, next time you better kill me, because you better not ever lay your hand on me again.
He came too. Okay. Sorry. Give me a minute. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, I seriously wish that you didn't have to go through all that. I seriously wish you didn't, but you did. And there's a purpose and a plan for you, because there's a lot of women out there that are probably going through the same thing that you went through. So let's back up the story a little bit, because, you know, all of this is in the book and it gets into details, but I want to go over a couple of really cool points that you mentioned to be a friend before you fall in love. Let's talk about that real quick. How vital is that?
It is probably the number one thing before you say I do. Because
now you say, wait, you say I do, I'm gonna be your girlfriend, or you say I do before you like jump over the broom?
Before you jump over the broom.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Once you say you think this is the one for you, if you haven't been a friend first, like I said, you're gonna overlook a lot of things because you're in love. Friends don't overlook it. I have a very, very, very good friend. We've been friends over 35 years. When she do something that I need to draw to her attention because I love her and she's my friend, and friends want friends to succeed, I stop her and she stops me. We have the same understanding. She says to me, Vickie, that's my nickname. You know you did so and so and so and so, and that wasn't right. Then I say the same thing, and she don't mind me using her name. I said, Loretta, you know you did so and so and so and so, and that wasn't right. Friends are going to point out because they love you anything that needs to be changed about you so that you can become the better you. You can become the better person. But when you fall in love, and like I fell in love, I wasn't his friend, nothing compatible whatsoever. He did so many things, literally. Are you ready for this?
No, I don't think I am, but go ahead.
The girl who sang at my wedding.
No.
My good friend who sang at my wedding.
No.
2 nights before my wedding, he asked her to sleep with him.
Did you know this?
No, she told me after it was a disaster. But it's hard to explain how it all came about. After he started acting crazy, I mean, literally he got arrested from the police. He had a mental problem that I didn't know about, that I overlooked. And he literally got in trouble peeping into windows, women's windows. There was just so much. I mean, I literally had the cops would follow me down the street, and because he was using my car to do some of his crimes. And I literally had cops casing out my house. And I'm like, who is that watching me all the time? They were actually looking for him because he had been reported being a peeping Tom, even in the apartment across the street from ours. And when I lived in Arizona, Tucson, Arizona, and everything's close. It's really, really close by. And I only had, my car was 3 years old, brand new. I bought it brand new when I married him. And it was 3 years old. And I only had 12,000, I think, I can't remember, it was either 3 or 9,000, but it was a low number of mileage on my car. He married me and would take off and leave all kinds of times of night and gone for hours and hours and hours. And within 3 months, he had put almost 100,000 miles.
Oh my gosh, no.
Right there.
That is horrible.
And he was out casing and chasing women. Just wouldn't work. It was probably, nobody knows but me and God how hard it was to deal with what I dealt with. And I tell people all the time, you can make it, but don't let it take the other title of the book is, don't let it take 43 years. Yeah. Don't let someone else's negativity cause you to become suicidal, bitter, cruel. Don't let what someone else does to you cause you to be the worst person. Take whatever they do and turn it into good. Wow. And then try to help somebody else. And it took me 43 years to get the message. So I don't want people to suffer. That's why I said I did my podcast as well, is because I don't want people to suffer. I want to give them tidbits now to help them, because I didn't have anybody at that time, because I was one of these people that if you saw me, you had no idea I had suffered. I kept this mask and this face on all the time, but inwardly I was this hurting, depressed, sad person that actually every night thought about, how could I kill myself and still go to heaven? That's what I did almost every night for years.
Oh my
God. I was depressed for over 14 years, but no one knew it. And I think that's why I really wanted to write my story, is because I wanted all those people who thought I was this and thought I was that and thought I was this to know, no, I wasn't. I was putting on a show.
My gosh. My goodness. My goodness. I'm so happy that you got out of that. It is so important because it is, I mean, how would I say this? It's so important not to rely and not to depend on someone else for your own happiness, no matter how much you love them, no matter how best of a friend you may be, you are responsible for your own happiness.
That's right.
And you know, and that's what happens as a woman and as a wife and as a mother. We put all of our love, all of our everything into our families. And when they disappoint, it's like as if they changed us, and our feelings and our being is wrapped up in that. We don't realize that we're a separate entity with control over our own facilities. And that can be hard. So when you came out of that and you came out of the bigger guy, okay, and you got out of that, how did you recapture yourself? How did you get yourself back together and understand that you are a separate entity?
Well, the only way I can put it is it took God. That's the only way I can answer. I have no other way. My roots from my mother and raising me in the church and telling me that God could do anything and help you through any situation is how I made it out. And I just, one day when I realized it, I just said, God, I surrender my whole life to you. I can't live like this any longer. And I just need your help to become the person you want me to be. And that's how I made it out. And then I started looking back on my life and realizing, and another thing that I have to give credit to, and I hope this is okay to say, was that I read Rick Warren's The Purpose-Driven Life.
Yes.
And I realized after reading that book, I said, I don't care what you've been through. The Bible says all things work together for the good of them that love the Lord. You just have to know you love the Lord, and it's going to work out for your good. And then I can be in the grocery store and I would think about it and I'll say, you know, I went through this, and I'll be in the grocery store and there will be somebody that'll come up to me, don't even know my name, and say, I feel like I'm going to commit suicide. Say, what? Really? And before I know it, I'm standing in the grocery store ministering to somebody.
There you go.
Giving my testimony, telling them, you know, one lady in one of my adopted children's school, I was getting ready to go get in the car because I was cold at one of their events. And I stopped in the hallway. I just felt led to stop in the hallway. And this woman walks up behind me and says, I just want to end my life. I said, and we became very good friends. And I started ministering to her, helping her with different things, her children and things like that. And I realize now all things do work together. Even if you have to go through it the bad way, even if you have to go through it the hard way, it's going to come out in the long run for your good. And to be able to help and share my testimony and help somebody now, it's been all worth it. And yes, there are some things I would have done differently, but I don't know where they would have led me. So all I can do is say that I trust God. And if I can help somebody else with what I've been through, then all of it was worth it to me.
Definitely, definitely. And the lesson that you do want to share, what is that? Ultimately, we all have something that we want to tell someone, or even like what you said in the grocery store, or, when you're ministering, what is the ultimate thing that you want people to understand and get from your life's testimony in your books?
Is never trust anyone but God. Always, and never try to be somebody. Whenever you have a problem or a situation that faces you, don't try to handle it yourself. Always let God show you what to do and how to handle that situation. And never, I know I'm giving more than one point, but never, never, ever fall in love with somebody before you become their friend.
Ever, ever.
Ever.
Wow, Miss Richardson, man, I'm telling you, what a life story. I mean, most people would think this would be like a movie. I mean, are you planning on getting like movie deals with this?
I sure hope so, because when I was dying of cancer, that you'll read in my book, given 72 hours to live, dying of cancer, it just came to me, it's not your time yet, because you're going to meet Oprah one day. You're going to have a movie. And I mean, I literally was given 72 hours to live after my first chemo treatment. And while I was dying, I had this dream that I was on the Oprah Winfrey show. And I do have the gift of dreams. And then one lady, just one day, I was telling her a part of my testimony. And she says to me, your life's going to be a movie one day. And I told her, I receive it. So I've been telling people down through the years, ever since I was 43 years old, because I didn't care before 43 years old. I was like, you can go and take me, God. I'm ready to go. But when I became 43, for the last 23 years, I've been telling people, my life's going to be a movie. So I'm speaking that into existence.
Yes. And I am agreeing with you. The one thing I want to ask you is, before we finish today and before we tell everybody where they can find the book, I want to find out how would you persuade Oprah to have you on her show?
Well, I went to one of her settings for Weight Watchers, tried to get out of it. You'll read about it in the book. I even put the letter I wrote to the bank in the book that I was trying to get my money back for going to the Oprah Winfrey show. And at that Oprah Winfrey show, I ended up having to go, but she fell down and she got back up. At all the shows she had done, it happened to be the show that I was at, that she literally just fell and hit the ground. But she got up like she was 15 years old. And I felt in my spirit, I said, that's how I am. And then she told her story about how when she was 7 years old and how she had to sleep outside, but Jesus watched over her. And I just felt such a connection, like I was supposed to be there. And she gave out her text message number after your weight loss journey, how to reach her. And she gave everybody, and she says, and believe it or not, it may take me a while, but I will get back with you. And this is my number that you can text me about your weight loss journey. So wow. I said, Lord, that's why I was supposed to be here. Because if I hadn't gone, I wouldn't have gotten that text message. Now I've been trying to lose weight. Lord help me. Every time I tried so I could reach Oprah, I done gained 5 more pounds. But I'm like, I'm going to get there, Oprah. I promise you. I'm going to get there. So I believe that some way, somehow, I'm going to meet her. Yeah.
Well, that's definitely Oprah Winfrey. If you're watching this show today, or if we get your attention, we have an amazing woman right here who had an amazing life and overcame everything between cancer, between an abusive husband, bigotry, and also someone who was cheating on her and gave her an STD. We want to make sure that she gets on your show today. So if you're watching this, Oprah Winfrey, or even the producers or the production company or the writers, please give her a contact. And where can they find you?
They can find me at vicksayr@gmail.com. And they can find my books on Amazon.
So we're going to put the links in the description box below so that it'll be easy for you guys to find it and go ahead and check that out for yourself. I would say if you're going through anything like this or anything that you feel like as if you're depressed, you want to kill yourself, you're suicidal, first of all, get in contact with someone who can help you. Next, read this book, because you're going to find out that you are not the love that you are in. You are the love that you have been given by the Most High.
That's right.
And that's where you dwell, not in that situation. You're not dependent on that for your happiness. Please don't do that. Come out of it. Look at it from the outside in as a person, like a friend, and then describe the situation, and you'll find out that your happiness is within your grasp.
That's right.
Ms. Richardson, I want to thank you so much for being on the show, man. I tell you, is there anything that we missed today?
Well, I also want to tell them to look at my podcast, When Love Hurts podcast, and they can catch up on a lot of the story of the book and little tidbits that will help them purchase the book. And I can get some subscriptions.
Yes, we're definitely going to do that. Subscribe, like, comment. Definitely. Yes, please. Let's support. But not only that, share, because this may just save someone's life.
That's right. And that's what my intent is. That's what my intent is.
Awesome. Well,
thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. Don't forget to dare to be different. And don't forget, your love, your happiness is your responsibility, not anyone else's. Until next time, guys. Bye.